Hey y'all, how are y'all doing today? Well, today's little find, I tend to like to find things that either ceramic or resin or something of the sort, and I like to repaint them, kind of like this little house right here. And I can either use them for decorations or I can put them outside. Like this one here I found and I've repainted the whole little thing, and it's designed for tea lights, but you can always have the option of putting different things in it. But it's got this door opening, and I thought, I like to put things out in my garden a lot. So I might be putting this one out in the garden. I don't know. We'll see. That's all I can say about that. And let's see what else I got. This little guy, thrift store find. I did some of it was repainted and some of it I left. And it's a little gazebo. And I put some extra snow on it to give it dimension. And of course, glitter. Must have glitter. So, today's find was a Siamese kitten, cat, whatever. And I know it looks like it's looking straight up at you, and it does kind of have that look. But if you move it around, it'll still look like it's looking straight at you. And I thought that was very interesting. So I decided that I was going to pick this one up because it's kind of creepy in a cool way. And what I'm going to do is what I like to do with these things is I will repaint parts of them that need to be repainted, that have gotten worn or tips broken or what have you, and it makes it look brand new, just like the ones that I've shown you on the little houses. So we're going to start with the darkest colors first, and I want to put a little bit of black on its nose because it should have black around its nose. We're going to just give it a little tip and a little bit on the bottom of its paws. A Siamese kitty should have bottom black paws. And you can see it's kind of starting to add a little bit already. And I can go in and add more and more different colors. Just add a little bit at a time so that it's not going to be so bright and so different. And if you get too much dark, it'll end up showing up too much, and it's easier to go darker than lighter. So I'm kind of laying on a little bit of really thin down black acrylic paint. Nothing really special about it other than it's acrylic paint. And I tend to use all different kinds of paints. Sometimes it'll be your chalk paints, and sometimes it'll be the acrylics. And it really just depends on what I'm doing. And I really don't honestly pay too much attention to all the different things. And so now I'm adding a little bit of shadow in there. Thin it down by tapping it in a little bit of water, and just add it down in the creases so that it's noticeable that those are the creases. And we'll put a little bit in here. A little bit under here. And I can always come back with the brown on this to lighten it up even more, or just to add that different dimension, not necessarily to really lighten it up. But I want to make sure that I get all the little white nicks covered, and it's kind of hard to see in this, but you can see the little white nicks right in here, and you want to make sure that those are covered. And again, look at these really weird eyes that just kind of follow you wherever you're going. It's really interesting and cool and creepy at the same time. So, anyways, I'm just filling gaps, trying to get the tight spots filled in a little bit. You might need a little bit more of this thinned down black color. Just dip in the brush in water and then get a little bit, a tiny bit of black and go into the creases. Being careful not to get any too much on the light colors, because I do not really want that on there, because I'm going to come back with a brown top coat and then a beige top coat as well. I do love Siamese cats, although I hear that they're not the friendliest cats around. Most people have always told me, and I always thought it was interesting. Maybe it's just my mom, who God only knows. But, people say that Palomino horses are not the friendliest horses. And the same has been said about Siamese cats. And it's funny because they have the very similar types of colorings. And they're beautiful animals. And I've always loved them. I always thought they were so pretty. So, but I was always told, don't get one. They're mean. They're very mean. I'm like, alright, whatever. So I'm tipping off a little bit of black on the ear tips. Of course, for y'all who don't know, it would probably be helpful to work with an actual picture of a cat. But I find this repainting method to be extremely easy because you're basically just brightening up the colors that already exist. So not a lot of worries there. And you can always blend it out later on. You can start to see a little bit of color happening here and a little bit of brightness. Now I'm going to put a little bit more in the ear. As you can see. Alright, add a little bit. And because this cat is textured, it's very easy to have multi-textures of color. So, meaning that you can put a color down, and then once that color dries, you can come back and add even more color by just barely touching the animal. And if you barely touch it, it'll just cover the top texture of the animal's fur. So you don't have all one color, it'll have multiple colors. Alrighty. There, my lighting is not all that great. Maybe I should see if I can put it. It's kind of hard because it's coming from the back. And sorry about that. That might help a little bit. We'll see. Alright. There we go. Now I'm going to pull in back a little bit more of that black color and go back over it. Remember, it doesn't have to be hugely thick paint. It just needs to be a little bit thin. We're just going to cover the base coat on this dark section, and then we'll be able to go from there. And yeah, the acrylic paints right over the ceramic pretty easily, and I've done different types of ceramic. Now this one here is a resin animal, but I've done a lot of different ceramic items and as well as resin items, and it's handy because you might have something for a long time and then it just kind of looks really dull and dragged out, and not as pretty as it once did. And by recoloring it, you can add all that drama back to it and make it look brand new and maybe do something else with it. All right. And instead of being something you want to get rid of because, well, it's just collecting dust, it becomes something that you enjoy having around the house. And you don't really have to have a lot of knowledge about painting. You don't have to have a knowledge about portraiture or animals or anything. It's actually quite simple to do. And you can always go and repaint it if you don't like it. So, getting that black in there. And always use, the smallest layers you think you can possibly do, because you want to decide how you like it before you go wholeheartedly into coloring something, which is a whole lot easier to do in small thin layers than slopping it on super thick. We have to resist that urge as much as we want to get done. We always should resist the urge to slop it on. And I am very, very guilty of that one quite often, because I have no patience. No patience at all. So, I'm covering the tail, getting the rest of that done. Getting all that white off of there. And this is pretty much pure black and water. Nothing extra really added to it. Just black and water. And it's starting to look like a fresh kitty again. So now I'm just going to take a little bit more and dab it on that nose. Give that nice shiny new face look. Another trick I've noticed with the animal whiskers and stuff, you see how I'm painting right around the face here? If you were to paint the animal and it looks older than actually how you painted it because it's fresh, you can go back and put just little white specks in the whiskers area right around in here, because that's going to make it aged and make the animal look older than what you have it painted to look. So you can do that just to add a little bit of age if you want to. I'm actually taking age away by putting more black on there. The older animals get, the more they tend to whiten and kind of gray out, and so their fur, especially the exterior portions of it, will become a lot more white and gray. So that's our black, and I think I'm going to let that one hold for a second, and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back, and I apologize if you hear any noise. The headset I'm using is on the left, and I am left-handed because the whole world is right-handed. It makes my life very difficult. But anyways, so now I'm going to do the lighter portion of the fur, and what I have done is I've mixed some Dixie Belle white chalk paint, which is, let's see the name of it, it's going to be Cotton, and I added a little bit of red to it, just a tiny little bit, to make it a kind of a pink fleshy tone. And so I'm going to start by doing that, and then I will add colors later on down the road that are closer to, which you can't even see the difference in the lighting here. Um, but just wanted to let y'all see what I'm doing. And I'll probably, like I said, I always add a little water to my brush. And this is basically the same as working with acrylics if you have chalk paint. I put everything in these little paint pots because I like to be able to close them up, mix my own colors, and I'm not usually using a ton of color or large of one particular color because I use a lot, on paintings and stuff. And if I were using it on furniture, like, most people do, um, I would not be putting it in these little paint pots. But since I use it mostly for painting, that's what I do. And I am the queen of using things for unintended purposes. So if it's supposed to be used for, a nail in the wall, I'm going to use it as something completely not a nail in the wall. I'm just going to make it up as I go. So, but that is what I do. And you can see a little bit of difference in our kitty. It's kind of hard to tell in the lighting. But it's a little bit lighter right now. Now that will change as I blend and mix. And y'all can see our kitty is staring at you all funky-fied. Oop, and some of the paint hadn't dried, which I'm horrible about waiting. I have no patience. So, I'm going to work around the back side of the kitty and right up to the tail. And that way we're nice and covered in color. Now I will go back and blend some more. Just putting a little bit more water on my brush so it's not quite as thick, because if y'all know chalk paint, it is extremely thick and it does dry to like a matte, which I like, meaning not shiny. But I like my paint a little bit goes a long way kind of thing, so I can thin it out. And this chalk paint you can do that with pretty well. They make it thick. Now if you were doing, say, furniture or whatever, they make it thick so that it covers with one coat pretty much, even though you end up doing two coats. But it'll cover almost everything you need to cover with not much paint at all. And so for my purposes, I can thin it down. But for furniture, of course, you want it nothing to bleed through on it and all that kind of good business. So you want to make sure that you're giving full coverage on your piece. So now kitty cat, she, he, whatever, is starting to get a little more of a pinkish tone to its skin. And I'm going to turn it around a little bit more. Now she's really looking at you. You can see in the light. So now I've just got a two-tone kitty. Haven't even started to do any blending or anything of the sort. Just covering the old colors and making it look new again. Add a little water to thin it down. I start to do that when it starts to get really hard to pull on the paintbrush, meaning that the paint will start to get real thick and hard, and it's just you keep going back to the paint pot to get more paint when you could just add a tiny bit of water and make it a little bit smoother. I'm all about cheap painting. I do not intend to spend a ton of money on paints. Now, a couple of things. If you are going to leave this inside, you can paint this with the paints I've chosen, and you don't need to do anything else. However, if you're going to put it outside, I do suggest covering those little glass eyes with some tape or something of the sort, and then giving it a little clear coat. It could be matte. It doesn't have to be all shiny or anything like that. In fact, I prefer not to, especially on trying to make animals look real, because that's just not, doesn't jive. So, but yeah, you just cover it with a little matte spray, a clear coat of some sort. And if you put too much water, make sure you move quickly on spreading the paint so it doesn't drip. It's another tip for you there. But put some in the little folds of the belly. You see, I'm shaking most of it off, and then I'm wiping off some of the water on the sides. I don't want to get too thin, because then you start dealing with drips. And I'm just kind of going around. I'm not all up on everything in this. Just kind of going around, and I'll go back in a bit and blend it more. And my little boxer doggy, Miss Lucy, she keeps coming in here aggravating me because she wants my attention. She wants all of my attention and not just one hand. Yep. Alrighty. One of these days I'm going to do some Bob Ross videos. Bob Ross, if you don't know who he is, then something's wrong with you. But he was my favorite, and I actually learned so much from him. And I used to watch him on PBS on the weekends paint back in the day when, because I mean, I hate to say this, I live on the Gulf Coast. However, we did not have cable at my house until I was in high school, so there wasn't a whole lot to watch on TV. There were 3 channels and PBS, and that was it. So I would watch Bob Ross on the weekends, and I was, of course nobody was into art, and there really wasn't a whole lot of people talking about it or teaching it or doing anything. Now on the coast, you go anywhere and find artists and art teachers and things like that. But they didn't have that when I was growing up. So I would watch Bob Ross, and he taught me originally how to paint landscapes and such. And that was how I learned just about everything. Best tips ever, best attitude ever. I loved his happy little trees and his happy accidents, and everything that he was about was just very positive and wonderful. So people make fun of him and everything, but they also know he was a seriously good artist as far as making things easy and easy to teach. I mean, to me, the definition of an artist of any kind or musician or anything is someone who can make it look easy. If you can make it look easy, then you must be really good. And that's just my personal opinion. All right, we'll be back in a few. Hold on one sec. All right, now going back to our darker colors again. Now keep in mind, she's still wet with the light colors. I haven't gotten to that yet. So what I wanted to do was go back and touch up some of the areas where that light color got onto the dark color, and just kind of clean it up a little bit because it was bothering me. So I'm going to turn this around and just kind of go right back over and into the crease down there so that it looks all dark again, providing I don't drop her. And back over the tail and over here. I found a couple of white spots that I did not want to be white spots. I know you're going, well, natural hair has different colors, and that's true. But I want to wait till the end of what I'm doing to be able to put back any of the light colors that I actually want. All right, so go back. Oh, no, I don't want that color. All right, so the color I was using for the body is right here. And I'm going to take this brown and I'm going to start to blend it a little bit in to the tail. So everywhere that on Siamese, there's usually a little bit of blending process, and we'll get more into the body blending later. But just so you know, here we're going to start with a darker brown right here. And kind of go very, very lightly over the fur to give it that brown and black look. So just dipping the bare tip in my nasty little brush. I say that because I'm not very good with keeping brushes all fancy and stuff. Oh, and I got a little bit more on there than I wanted to, so I'm going to try to blend that out some more. So you can start to see a little bit of movement in the body by just going very, very lightly over with that brown. And I might come back with a little bit more black. Alrighty. And then it's a challenge to get under here and into the belly. But I think we'll get it. Alright, and I mean, and no worries. Seriously, you can always go back and add more or less, of a different color. You don't have to really worry about it that much. Everything you do is just your choice anyways. So that's the good thing, is you've got complete control over it. So there's no worries about it. Alright, light touch, blending, just to get on the tips of the fur. And we'll go into that that crevice a little bit. And I'm lightly blending, because I just want to go on to the tips. Sometimes the drier the brush, the better. As you can see, when I'm coming on the tips of the fur a little bit, I'm using a bit of a dry brush so that it doesn't really get too deep. We want it kind of light. And please feel free to rub it off with your finger if you gotta. But you can see I want just enough in the creases there to let you know that there is an actual crease, that give it that depth. So I'm using a very dry sort of brush, just very lightly going in. And the creases, I do push in the color just a little bit. Now, I'll probably go back over and make that a little bit lighter in there, because I don't really like that. But in the meantime, I'm still going to finish my creases, because I try to use like most of the paint that I can use before I redip the brush, especially if I'm doing like really light colors. Dry brushing, blending, I want to use all that first before I go back and redip. And there. There, you can kind of see it coming along now. He's starting to get a little bit, or she, or it, starting to get a little bit more color. A little bit of blended. Can barely see. I know the lighting is harsh and it's a little hard to look at sometimes, but there is a little bit of color there. We're just going to follow around the face. And we're blending. Okay, let me turn this around a little. You can see the colors right through here and over here, and you can see where it's starting to come up a little bit. And you can see right here is more color than I really needed, but I'm going to blend it out anyways. Just blend it out, and that way it makes it look like it's supposed to be that way. And that is the answer to most of all the problems in, you know, art and stuff. Make it look like it's supposed to be that way. It's not a big deal. And I find it fascinating to watch those folks who are just so intense about everything, because I'm just not that way. And they will get like so upset with themselves, and it's like the hardest chore to do anything, and it kind of cracks me up. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's really not all that. It's just really not. This should be the most relaxing thing you could possibly do. And, you know, they take it too seriously. And to be honest, this is a cat that I paid $3 for at Goodwill. So you can't mess it up. You just can't. So, and if I dislike it, I'll go back and I will paint again. And I'll do all the colors all over again and then start from there. So it's just not a big worry. I'm not worried about it, and neither should you. It should be relaxing and fun. Alright, now here again, I've gotten the brush a little bit drier because I've offloaded some paint onto here as much as I could. And I'm going down into the little crevices and lightly over some of the fur at the same time to give more depth to it, to add more to the face. And you'll see, adding a little bit more here and there, just constantly doing that. I'm going to dip my brush just a tiniest touch on the very tips, and I'm going to go very, very lightly over the fur. And again, right now I'm adding just so I can get the brush down to its bare minimum of paint on the brush, so I can blend. And I'm going lightly over everything. And I want to blend it in here so that the fur stands out more. And I'll do this probably several times in several layers, just to kind of get it down to where, and you want to do the layers. You don't want to, you know, like I said, you don't want to do it all at once. You want to do it a little bit at a time so that you can actually blend and make it pretty. Okay, let's see. Alright. We are just getting around the whiskers a little bit, so forgive me if I'm not talking, because I'm like holding my breath while I do it, because I don't want to mess it up. But like I said, if you do mess it up, it's not a big deal. Really not. All you do is go back and repaint the whole darned thing. And a lot of times it's easier if you go crossways, opposite directions of the fur, to get just that little bit of color on the fur, you know. So the fur is actually going from here to here, and I am going this way, perpendicular to it, to try and add a little bit of blending. So that is what I am doing. And I think I'm going to go back in this ear a little bit and put a little bit more of the brown and pull that out of the ear. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have an inner ear look so bright and colorful. It's got to be a little duller. Okay. Now I'm going to go up under here just a little touch. Let me offload some of this paint. As you can see, I don't want that much paint on there. So I'm going to go into the curve of her mouth and on this side as well. Just dig down and get a little bit of paint into those curves. And then I'm going to come back a little bit. I want to, and I apologize y'all can't see it, but I want to go back here and lighten this little spot because there was a little bit of pink and I don't know where it came from. So we're going to put just a little bit back, a little bit too much pink. And under here, where my thumb is on the chin, a little bit too much brown, and I did not like the way that turned out. So I'm just going to go back over it again and kind of blend it out. I'm just kind of scrubbing the paint out so that now it's got a little bit more of that light color to it. And I'll come back in a minute and I might add some little bit more brown. I know a little bit seems to be my favorite word. I don't know why. Okay. Kitty is starting to look a whole lot better. Alright, little pads on the paws are black now, and the toenails are black, and the nose is black, and everything else is kind of black and brown. And we've got some shading in all of the creases and some shading around the face as well. Alright, and I've added little bits of brown. Oop, that one came out a little too dark. Alright, so we're going to blend that one back out. So I added the little colors. Alright, and you can see I'm wiping most of the paint off of the brush. There's not a whole lot there. And I'm just going to go back across this area of hair. And it's ever so light. So light. Because I do not want it to get down in the crevices. I want it just to sit on top. Just to give that little highlight effect. Same for the ears. I'm going to go right up here on the top of the ears where all the fur is and add a little bit there. And this is, again, now I am a big proponent of not rinsing the brush too often. And I'm not saying that's any good, but I usually do one brush most of the time unless I need it for different things. And I also use the same brush for the different colors, and part of that is, to me, it blends better when you have that, because now I've taken the brown that I had and this little bit of pinky peachy flesh color and put them together, and that is part of my blending color. So that's how that happens, is we just blend it in. And it's just, to me, it's a lot more efficient. It gives you a lot more depth of color when you can do that, because then you've got multiple colors. And as you're using, like if I'm going from a brown to a flesh tone, it'll graduate in color as well. So it'll change slightly. And so none of the colors are all going to be the exact same throughout the piece. It'll change a little bit here and there throughout. So that's how we do that. All right, into the water cup my paint goes. Close my little paint pot. And she needs to dry a lot more. But that is my little Goodwill kitty. And she's all looking all freshed up. And with her little wicked eyes that follow you everywhere you go. Isn't that the strangest? I need to find a picture like that to hang in the house. But yeah, that's my Goodwill kitty. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon.